Gracie Jiu-Jitsu rocks. Welcome to the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Rocks podcast, a podcast dedicated to Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and all things Gracie, including self-defense, competition, anti-bullying, women's self-defense and empowerment, nutrition, and most especially, the people involved in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. This podcast is for the average Joe. It's for anyone who practices, trains, teaches, or just loves to talk about or hear about Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. We'll explore the lives of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu practitioners, how they got involved in the art, and what effect it's had on their lives. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. Welcome to episode 159 of the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Rocks podcast. As always, I'm your host, Marty Josie, and thanks for listening. Today, my guest will be Dr. Peter Warshawski, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But before we do, let's start with our quote. And that is, "I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times." And that's from the legendary Bruce Lee. All right, Peter Warshawski is a lifelong martial artist, world-renowned periodontal dental surgeon, fitness enthusiast, recent author, and more. In this episode, we get into his new book, Blows, and why he wrote it, overcoming all the childhood negative programming and discovering his power, becoming a periodontal dental surgeon, and the importance of dental hygiene on other areas of health, including cardiovascular disease, the importance of food and nutrition, being diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, how he met his wife Audry and how special she is, the importance of self-care and resilience, the role that jiu-jitsu has played in his life, and who have been the biggest influencers on his jiu-jitsu, why boxing is so important to him, and the role James Lights Out Toney has had on him, what he wants his legacy to be, and why anyone can achieve great things with the right mindset. So I really enjoyed doing this interview, and I know you're going to enjoy it as well. After the interview, make sure to stay tuned for the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. And now, without further ado, let's meet Pete. All right, I'm here speaking with Pete Warshawski, lifelong martial artist, world-renowned periodontal dental surgeon, fitness enthusiast, and recent author, among many other things. So welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Marty. I appreciate you taking the time to have me on your podcast.
Oh, it's my pleasure and honor. And there are a number of things that I definitely want to get into. We're going to explore your book, which I really enjoyed, and get to know you a little better. My goal here is for people just to know you better as a person when we're done. So in keeping with that, one of the things I'm most impressed with about you is that you are not only a dentist, but a periodontist, and not only that, a surgeon. Not only a dental surgeon, but a periodontal surgeon, which is kind of, to me, the elite of the elite in the dental arena. So if you would tell us a little bit about exactly what that is that you do, maybe the difference in general dentistry and what you do, how you became a dental surgeon, and then we'll maybe talk a little bit about some of the importance of dental hygiene and health and how that relates to other areas of health.
Yeah, that's a good starting point because, periodontics or periodontist is sort of a unusual word that maybe a few people aren't familiar with. So the normal scenario is that an individual, after they get their undergrad degree, they do something with it. And I decided to, I worked for a couple of years as a chemist, didn't really like that, so then went to dental school. And following dental school, I sort of realized that I wanted to have a little bit more of a specialty into one area within dentistry, and that's periodontics. And periodontics, Marty, deals with the gum and bone support that hold a person's teeth in their head. Most people don't think, hey, why are my teeth in my head? But it's actually primarily the jawbone and the gum tissue that covers the jawbone that holds your teeth in your head, all right? And if I go on and on too much here, Marty, let me know, because, I mean, this is a vast topic.
Oh, sure.
Speak weeks about it. So long story short, your teeth are in your head because of the gum and bone that hold them there. Periodontal disease is a situation where there is a progressive deterioration of the gum and bone that hold the teeth in place. That deterioration, Marty, occurs usually very slowly, that at a rate that most people do not feel that deterioration going on. It's not painful, in other words.
Okay.
And so worst case scenario, person goes through their life and then they're in their 30s, 40s, or 50s, and they end up in a situation where they notice their teeth are loose on their own because they haven't been going to the dentist. And it's sort of at a point of no return. There's too much damage and deterioration. So again, periodontal disease is a situation of deterioration of the gum and bone that hold the teeth in place. A periodontist is a dental specialist that has an additional 3 years of training on helping patients, people, humans, how to help preserve, save their teeth so they don't lose their teeth.
Gotcha. So that is really specialized. And like I said, I have great admiration for anybody that goes into that, and then additionally become a surgeon, so additional specialties. So props to you. Can you share a little bit with us, because wasn't that long ago that I didn't really even know there was a correlation between, your dental health and other health of your body, like cardiovascular areas and stuff. So can you share a little bit about that for us, please?
For sure. So as I mentioned, what holds your teeth in your head is the jawbone and the gum tissue. And so in everybody's mouth, and most people are probably aware of this, there's bacteria that lives there. In fact, there's hundreds of different types of bacteria. Some are good, some are bad. And so the bacteria sticks to the root surface or the teeth, and that, in the combination with food products, forms what's called plaque. Most people do brush that plaque off their teeth, get it off their teeth in the morning because it feels sort of yucky. So people brush their teeth to get the plaque, the bacteria off their teeth. It makes their teeth feel better. What happens to some people is they don't know the importance, or they're too busy maybe to do another meaningless or task on, and that's flossing. So bacteria gets between the teeth, and the toothbrush gets a lot of the plaque and bacteria off the root surfaces of the teeth, but doesn't get the bacteria out from in between the teeth, which is where most of the bacteria likes to hide. So the bacteria is hidden in between your teeth, and over time gradually migrates beneath the gum line, underneath the gum tissue, into a warm, moist environment where it likes to live. All right, and that causes an inflammatory reaction, inflammation, a little bit of puffiness, or maybe a lot of puffiness to the gum tissue. When the gum tissue gets puffy, Marty, bacteria then can enter the bloodstream. You follow me?
Yes, absolutely.
So the bacteria gets in the bloodstream. The bloodstream is like a super highway throughout your body, all right? Most people are aware of that, and goes everywhere, obviously, to your little toe, the top of your head. There are blood vessels, arteries, veins. And so the bacteria from the inflamed or swollen gums gets into the bloodstream, circulates around, and then can end up vegetating or stopping maybe on a body part. Like if an individual has a defective heart valve, the bacteria might end up landing on that blood valve and then forming a whole cluster of bacteria on that heart valve. So that can weaken or damage the heart valve.
Gotcha.
So that's one venue. More thoroughly, what happens is the bacteria, again, going through the bloodstream, two things happen. It can accumulate, the bacteria can build up within the blood vessels through a chain reaction of events, and you can get plaque buildup in the blood vessels, narrowing the blood vessels that can put extra work and pressure on the heart that leads to high blood pressure. If those plaques within the blood vessel break off, it can clog a heart artery, causing a heart attack, or get into the brain that causes a stroke. And so that, in a nutshell, is the correlation, what's called the oral systemic link between periodontal disease and heart disease or cardiovascular disease.
That's pretty.
It's really much more complicated. I just sort of.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you could speak all day about it, but I appreciate you just giving us and the listeners just kind of an overview, because a lot of people don't realize there is a connection. And I know there's been people, and I've been guilty in the past of trying to be as healthy as I can in some ways, but taking that for granted a bit and being a little sloppy with their dental, maintenance and healthcare. So
can I interrupt you here for a
certainly,
second, Marty?
Yeah.
My goal here is to help listeners improve the quality of their lives. And so one of the things, like, how can you prevent this from happening to our listeners and to people that we love and care about, family members and friends? And that is two ways. Number one is to go to a dentist that's thorough and conscientious and checks your gums. And you should get professional cleanings twice a year and an office that's thorough, that spends ideally an hour at your dental hygiene appointment cleaning your teeth. And when you get your teeth cleaned, they should be checking the pocket depths. The pocket depths are the gap between the gum and the tooth. And that gap should be rather small, like 2 to 3 millimeters. So when you brush and floss, you're getting the bacteria, the plaque out from underneath that gum line. When the pockets get deeper, 4, 5, 6, 10, 12 millimeters, that can start being problematic, and you need maybe some more advanced treatment. So that's one thing. Go to a dentist that's thorough. And so it's very much like jiu-jitsu. There's levels to things, as you know, Marty.
Right.
There's Mick dojos where, you're not maybe getting the best curriculum, the best teachers in jiu-jitsu. And then you have high-end instructors that really show you the nuance, the concepts of jiu-jitsu. Same things in every walk of life. There's levels to things. And the same thing with dentistry. You want to go to a dentist that is thorough, compassionate, and caring. Number two, I cannot overemphasize the importance of cleaning between the teeth. And it doesn't necessarily have to be flossing, though flossing is good. You can use little toothpicks. You can use something more advanced or fancy that you can get at any drugstore called Stimulants. I use this little floss thing called I don't even know the name of it. It looks like a sword on one and a floss on the other. And I use that in between my teeth. The last thing I'll say about this here, Marty, is to try to incorporate cleaning between your teeth into a daily activity. If you set aside time before you go to work or the end of the day, you're likely too busy or too tired to floss your teeth. So what I do is I keep them in the console of my automobile. So when I'm driving and at every red light, I'm sort of picking up my teeth. Or I keep them by my couch, and if I watch TV at night, I'll sort of pick at my teeth.
Right.
A side note is I was recently at Henry Akins jiu-jitsu camp in Tamarindo, Costa Rica, and I saw one of the guys in class that was taking the seminar, Dan Hart, in between practicing moves, using a little rotopoint, believe it or not, cleaning between his teeth. So I was tickled
That's
and
great.
impressed to see that.
Props to Dan for that, right? Yeah, so like anything, if you want to make it a habit, you need to put things in place, right, where you will do it and take the time and have it in a strategic format. So, yeah, so I was jealous hearing that you were just at that camp. So let's talk a little bit about jiu-jitsu. When did you get started with jiu-jitsu? I know you've been doing it a long time, and just tell us about how you got started with that and some of the highlights of how that's been for you.
Yeah, it's a long story. I don't even know where to begin, but to make a long story short, I had some challenges growing up where I was anxious, got beat up a lot, bullied. A lot of people go through that kind of thing. And so I was always searching for something along the way. I tried different things. I tried a little bit of boxing. Then I really got into boxing later in my life, but did a little bit of boxing. When I was in Arizona working for the U.S. Public Health, I did Aikido because I thought Steven Seagal was cool. I sort of enjoyed it, but really, I thought, man, I don't see the practical applications of this. And then when I moved to LA to go to grad school for periodontics and dental implants, I started doing judo, and it just didn't really feel great. At the time of my life, I was really into weightlifting as well, heavy weightlifting, because I thought that having a tough, muscular exterior would sort of protect me, my soft underbelly. So long story short, I was working out at this iconic gym called Gold's Gym in Venice, California. A lot of bodybuilders, actors, actresses work out there. It's an iconic place. And I saw this gal, her name's Tammy, and she was wearing a jiu-jitsu t-shirt, and this was in 1994. And I'd never heard of the UFC, and that was, I know, the infancy of the UFC, but I didn't know anything about that world. But I saw this girl named Tammy wearing this jiu-jitsu shirt, and I was talking to her, and I said, what's this jiu-jitsu thing? And she sort of told me about this guy named Rickson Gracie, and I'd never heard of him. She goes, well, you really come down and check out his academy. It's awesome. And so, like I said, I always in the back of my mind thought it was important to be able to protect myself, my family, my loved ones, and all that kind of stuff. And so I went down there one evening, and it was sort of where the jiu-jitsu scene started in LA. It was on Pico and Sepulveda, down a dark alley. And so I sort of, not knowing what to expect, and I'm pretty open-minded. I'm very open-minded. I go down this ramp, enter the academy, open the doors, and it was sort of like a saloon, as the doors sort of, there's like a Western saloon with the doors sort of popping open. And I go in there, and there are a bunch of green mats and guys sort of like wrestling around on the mats. And so I'm sort of standing off to the side, watching this, and everybody seems to be having a good time and all that. And I'm not really understanding. I'm totally not understanding what's going on. And this guy comes over, a muscular guy. He introduces himself as Rickson Gracie. He had a ponytail at the time, big beaming smile, incredibly charismatic, warm, and friendly. And he introduced himself to me and said, hey, you should try this out, blah, blah, blah. And that's sort of how it all started, Marty. And then one thing led to another, and I started training there.
What better way to get started in jiu-jitsu, right?
Pure luck. It was just this nice gal at Gold's Gym wearing this shirt. And it's sort of strange how little events. I'm fascinated, Marty, by how just one little event can dictate the outcome of a person's life. And that's one of the things I enjoy about dentistry is I do enjoy, even though I'm an introvert, I enjoy interacting with people, finding out their stories. And it blows my mind to hear like how one little event can change the course of a person's life, whether it be for good or for bad. And, the person either does something they love the rest of their life, something they hate the rest of their life, but, it creates a path for them. And that's what meeting Tammy did for me. It opened up a door to what became a passion, almost an obsession of mine, which was Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
I love it. I love hearing stories like that where one little chance encounter, and like think about it. You're an introvert, but you took it upon yourself to reach out and ask her about her shirt. So got out of your comfort zone, however much you had to do that. And then that opened the door for this whole exposure to jiu-jitsu. Awesome. I know that you've gone through a lot of different places and, instructors and different things over the years, but I know one of the most important influences in your jiu-jitsu, besides, I guess, starting with Rickson, is Henry Akins, right?
Yeah, Henry's been a impactful person in my life amongst a bunch of people, man. So many people have helped me out throughout my life. I mean, I can't even begin to list them. But yeah, Henry was a big part of my life, and he's become a great friend, a dear friend. We met early on in 1994 at the Rickson's Academy, and we weren't really good friends then. We were at different places in our lives, Marty. I was in graduate school, which is super intense. It's a full-time program. It's a very rigid, structured program. So that was another offbeat of what I liked about the whole Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a very warm, creative, fun environment. Opposed to sort of what I was doing with the judo is very strict Japanese culture. What I experienced with the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was like sort of a laid-back, chilled, surfing type of mentality, though I'm not a surfer. They're very charismatic and warm to me. Right. So in that group, there were a lot of Brazilians. Maybe half the class was Brazilian. And then there were the other people. And Henry was one of those other people. And he was there just to learn jiu-jitsu. I was there. I wanted to learn jiu-jitsu, but it wasn't my full life. So, we had different parts, different things going on in our lives. I had a young child at the time, 1 year old. I was in grad school. I was also lifting weights a lot. So, I knew of Henry, and, we were respectful to each other. I was friends with some of his friends. His brother was actually there at the same time, Matt. There was Brock, Blake. It was a whole, group of people. So then life gets in the way. I finish up grad school. We moved to Palm Desert, California. I continue my jiu-jitsu journey there, which is another story. But long story short, in roughly 2016, my son, was born humming, loves music. And so he wanted to go to Hollywood to do an internship at a radio station. So I thought that'd be a cool time for us to, drive there together. It's like a 2.5-hour drive from where I lived. We drove there. I would drop my son off at this radio station where he'd do this music stuff. And I would go train at this place called Hollywood Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is owned by a person that you had on your show a couple of weeks ago, Sean Patrick Flannery. Yeah. You asked about Henry, and that's where this is going. So every Wednesday we would go to Hollywood. I'd drop my son off. I'd take jiu-jitsu classes at Hollywood Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And a lot of guys in the class kept talking about this guy, Henry. And finally one day I said, what's up with this guy, Henry? Why do you guys always talk about him? And he goes, it's Henry Akins. He every now and then guest teaches at the academy here, and the guy's incredible at jiu-jitsu. And I'm like, holy shit, Henry Akins. I remember that guy. I knew him back in 1994 to 96 when I was training at Hickson's Academy. So I reconnected with Henry and he was at Dynamics Mixed Martial Arts in Santa Monica. And I started going out there every week to take privates with Henry. So that's sort of the genesis of the Henry Akins story.
One line out of your book says, Henry was the first jiu-jitsu instructor I met who taught principles and concepts rather than a series of choreographed movements. So that seemed like it was a kind of a big thing for you at that moment.
Man, I cannot even overemphasize the impact that statement has. I'll never forget the first private I had with him back in, it must have been 2016. He mounted me, and like I said, I was into strength and all that, and did jiu-jitsu wrong for many, many years. And though people told me, hey, there's better ways, Pete, you should be doing this, you should be doing that, my ego, Marty, was in the way, and it wouldn't sink in that technique mattered, that movement mattered. I thought I could just out-aggressive everybody, and I wasted a lot of time and energy, way too much time and energy with that wrong mindset. So Henry started me over and would mounted me and said, okay, how are you going to get out? And I would flail and panic and just go wild. Nothing would really happen. I wouldn't get out. And so he slowed everything down, and we sort of started. That was my first introduction to, I know some of this near and dear to you, and that's breath work.
Absolutely.
And so Henry really talked to me about calming everything down and picking a particular move and why that works and how to put myself in a position to be effective and efficient in a simple manner. And that's what Henry is a virtuoso at, is this simple stuff in jiu-jitsu, making it beautiful and perfect. Like I'd never seen before. And I'd taken privates from a lot of instructors around the United States. Every time, Marty, I would take a dental seminar in a different city because I need 50 units every 2 years for my continuing education requirements within dentistry. I would go to Las Vegas, Orlando, Florida, and I would take a private or a group class. And Henry's method of teaching, much, much different than any other places I'd ever been.
Well, it's such an important thing, and it's actually a gift, that he gave you and many others, that simplicity and that be able to cut out all the chaos and drill it down to the simplest terms and what's the most important elements, breathing, staying relaxed, weathering the storm, and then looking for your opportunity instead of fighting like mad, which, your physical attributes, yours probably, took you a good ways for a lot of your life. But yes, coming to this brought it up to a whole different level. I think it's funny that you say when you'd go to different cities for your continuing ed, you kind of plan things around. I'm always doing that when I travel. I'm like, okay, who can I visit? Where can I get a private? It's just funny when I travel work related.
Hey, let me interrupt you here. A trippy story is that that whole simplicity thing, man, I'm obsessed with it. I was actually at a dental seminar with a world-class speaker in Orlando, Florida, Michael Pios, and he put a picture. This is at a dental seminar with world-class instructors, and he put a slide on the board in front of a couple hundred participants, and it says, "Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication."
Yes.
And so I've taken that and I've drilled that into my head, and everything I do is, do the basics better than anybody, Yeah.
Love it. You hear that over and over, but it can easily be dismissed. Okay, yeah, I'm sure basics are important, but the people I've encountered that have really taken that to heart, they're just on a whole different level physiologically as well as, philosophically as well as, physically in their technique. So hats off to you. So you mentioned briefly what you had to overcome growing up. Let's talk about your book for a moment. I read it. I loved it. Really recommend everybody get this book and check it out. First of all, I love memoirs. It gives a glimpse into people's lives, their journeys, their experiences, and their mindset and philosophy. So I like them in general, but really enjoyed yours. You've lived an interesting life, had a lot of great experiences, and, you're truly an exceptional human being. Boxing matches in your 50s, again, world-renowned periodontal dental surgeon, fitness enthusiast, and yeah, just an interesting life. But your book starts off talking about your upbringing and your childhood and your resilience, overcoming all the negative programming and discovering your power, going from Pete the Panic, as you call him, to Icy Pete. So if you would tell us a bit about what life was like growing up for you and some of the struggles and obstacles you had to overcome.
Well, thank you for the kind words and sort of segue into this, Marty. You phrased it very nicely. First and foremost, I've been fortunate and blessed more so than probably 99% of the world, maybe even 99.9% of the world, in so many ways, to be born in the United States, to two parents that were married, that loved me and that provided for me. And that's much more than most people in the world and a lot of people in the United States. And I've met so many people that have had many, many more obstacles than I faced growing up. I would say I had sort of an unusual childhood, and I also grew up incredibly sensitive. And so that combination of some unusual parent rearing techniques and a very sensitive young boy led to a high degree of anxiety, fear, and awkwardness, all right, that I felt negatively impacted my ability in many ways. For example, I love sports. I've always enjoyed watching sports, but I was always terrible at sports, last kid picked on teams. And part of that dealt with like doubt and uncertainty in my head about what to do, how's it going to happen, when's it going to happen, am I going to get hurt, all these doubts. And by the time I sort of reacted, it was already too late. And that actually continued into my jiu-jitsu early years, is all the voices in my head. And that's what I talk about in the book a lot, is what are the voices in your head saying to you? And so my early years were filled with doubt and uncertainty, fear of getting hurt, fear of failure, and the such. And man, writing the book really was it was therapeutic. I began to understand myself much better, Marty. Like, where and why did this come from? And it sort of came from what happens to most people, how your parents were raised, what happened to your parents, what happened to your grandparents, impacts what happens to each and every one of us, whether we know it or not. So again, I go into this in much more detail in the book.
The reason it really resonated with me because, I'm not Jewish. I didn't have some of the things that you did. And I agree with you. There's so many people you can look at that had it worse in a lot of ways. But even people that seem on the outside to have had it great, somewhat of a middle class, 2-parent home, with a lot of things going for them. If there's internal things in your home, like I had a pretty dysfunctional family. I didn't even realize that till long after I had moved out. But how that affects you is, like you said, fear, anxiety, kills your self-esteem. And that's a lifelong struggle to overcome. And I know you've really done a lot of work and come a long way, and as I have. But man, when you start out like that, it really does affect every area of your life.
Yeah, so it's a trip, Marty, that, a number of people have read my book Blows, and I'm blown away that how many people it connects with, because you're absolutely right. Most people have issues, some severe, some that seem severe, some that aren't severe growing up, and that can impact their life. Man, I was blessed and fortunate that I am a dreamer, and I naturally dreamt of possibilities and how does Peter want to be really. And it was a lonely childhood in many ways. I would walk around the apartment complex I grew up in and just walk around and sort of just daydream. What is the type of person that Pete wants to be? Where does Pete want to live? What does Pete want to be like? And I don't know if that's strange, unique, but I did that. And I sort of had a vision of what Pete wanted to be like. And that was sort of the genesis of things in many ways, that I was fortunate to be a dreamer and dreamt of possibilities and didn't get completely buried, smothered into that I became, I couldn't move. I was frozen.
Yeah, it didn't paralyze you, right?
That was the word I was looking for. Yeah, it didn't paralyze me. I was still a dreamer, man. I still thought, man, what can I do? I didn't really have the answers, but I knew, man, something's going to happen. I just got to figure it out. And I tried different things along the way to become the person I wanted to become. And that's, a lot about what the book's about is, the things I tried. And so I think for some of the younger readers, man, they can skip and the wasted years I had sort of trying to figure out how to become who I wanted to be. That, life is about choices and the choices that we make, and we are in control of how we think, and we can change the way we think. It took me a long time to realize that, but I'm there, man. I've rewired my brain.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to read about and to see someone. That's another reason I like to see, hear people's journeys or read their memoirs, because where they are today is a long way from where they started, including you. But, you mentioned that whole one little thing can really change the trajectory and set things in motion and affect your life. And the same is like, I know for Jewish Americans like yourself that, you basically say, your parents say you're going to be a doctor or a doctor and a lawyer. Pretty slim choices, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of an expectation. And I know I read where you weren't one to kind of push against that at the time, but it set the course where you went to your undergrad, and I think that's where you met your wife, which definitely a course set in motion, right?
Yeah.
And you describe her as the light to your darkness, so that's pretty cool. Her name's Audry, right?
Yeah, it's the best thing that ever happened to me, the luckiest thing that ever happened to me, period. I mean, she's a beautiful person. Her family's beautiful, loving, caring, warm, always looking at the bright side of things. And I was fortunate, lucky, and blessed to, become part of that family. Part of the darkness for me growing up is, my parents had ideas of who and what they wanted me to become, and their vision was a cultured, academic sort of person, a college professor that enjoyed playing Bach or Beethoven or Mozart on the piano. That was anything but really who I was. I grew up a very hyperactive, energetic kid that could not sit still to save my life. I constantly had to move, and that turned out to be a blessing in disguise also, because I later on in life found out the movement is meditative. And so a lot of the demons and dark thoughts I would be able to release by taking, long walks around my neighborhood. Later on in life, after I saw the Rocky movie, I started doing push-ups. And so it became an outlet. Physical movement was meditative for me. But so anyways, my parents' vision was for Peter to be a very cultured, academic sort of person, which was not my vision. I just wanted to be outside playing, having a good time, running around with friends, climbing trees, jumping in ponds, and that type of thing. So I butted head a lot with my parents. My dad, for some odd reason, was obsessed with the Holocaust and everything that happened to the Jewish people during World War II. So he had me do these reading assignments every week where I would have to read a book about the atrocities done to the Jewish people, and then I have to write book reports on them. And at the time of my life, Marty, I was very obedient. I wanted love from my parents. They didn't know how to express love. So I thought by being obedient and doing everything they told me to do, that I would, receive and feel that warmth and love, which really never happened. And that's fine, man. It made me who I am today, a better person. But at the time, I was just always trying to get that love and affection, never felt it. And so I'm reading these books about these terrible things happening to the Jewish people because I was told to do that. I was obedient. And then I'd lay awake at night having nightmares, dreams about, being executed, my family being executed, being tortured. And I'm a 13-year-old kid having these thoughts. So it messed me up big time, to say the least. And so I grew up not trusting anybody, looking at everybody as a threat. And I know that seems over the top, paranoid. And like I said, I was a super sensitive kid, but that's how I felt. I felt everybody was a threat to my well-being, my family's well-being, and it messed me up.
You know, that sensitivity is a kind of survival mechanism, right? For when people are in certain traumatic situations. And that is a form of trauma, that you were exposed to all that and injected with a lot of fear on a continual basis. So because...
And let me interrupt you, man. I'm not ripping on my dad. His intentions were good. Well, I don't know if good is the word. He wasn't being malicious on purpose. I did not know any different to question, why am I doing this? Like I said, I was obedient. And even if I had questioned it, previous experiences in my life taught me it didn't make a difference. My parents were not going to recant on what they told me to do. I was obedient, and I was forced to be obedient.
Absolutely. But if you study any trauma work, people that come from certain types of trauma, they become very sensitive because they have to be ready for whatever is coming next. You know, they don't know what to expect, so they're on heightened alert, and that breeds this sensitivity. But yeah, I'm not questioning the motives of your parents nor mine when I shared my background, but they do the best they can with where they are, right? Yep. And then we have to kind of pick up where we are, and it's up to us. I also don't like when people live their life as a victim because of it and never get better and then blame that, because at some point, you know, you're in charge to make the decisions of your life, and then you did. And
hey, Marty, that's one big thing that I didn't realize this when I started writing the book. But that's what I want to share. That's my message to people. You do have a choice. You don't have to be a victim. You don't have to be a victim to anything. And, you know, the title is Blows, and blows are the failures and the bad stuff that happened to me trying to get better. And so you can change. People can change. And that's my message in the book. You know, get knocked down 7 times, get up 8 times is like the recurring theme. You don't need to be a victim to a disease, a disability. You can always do something to get better, in my opinion.
Totally agree. For example, another obstacle you had to overcome is later in life being diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And that led you, instead of just kind of being a victim there, it led you to an exploration of non-traditional, means, including the importance of diet and nutrition. So share a little bit about that, if you would.
100%. Yeah. And all these obstacles and occurrences were actually stepping stones to growth. I mean, I didn't realize it at the time. So my hands were sort of locking up. My knuckles were really getting swollen. And this was around 2016. And so I was having a hard time closing my hands. And even doing push-ups was becoming a bit of a challenge because my elbows would get all creaky and make noises. And I found grinding in my elbows. Like I said, back then I used to do hundreds of push-ups every day. I've been doing them, my whole life. So I went to UCLA. They have a good immunology clinic there. And so I got a battery of tests, super fancy, expensive tests. And all came back saying I had all these immunological factors that diagnosed me with rheumatoid arthritis. All right. And so the doctor prescribed me this medication called methotrexate. And, I started taking it. And 6 months later, I'm not really feeling any different, not feeling any better, not 100% in love with being torn up or having to take a medication the rest of my life. So I go back to the doctor 6 months after starting the methotrexate. I'm like, this stuff's not really working for me. They go, oh, well, let's try a different one that's stronger, more potent, it's a biologic, and it'll change your immune system. I'm like, man, that just didn't sound right to me. So I went home and sort of maybe felt sorry for myself for 30 seconds. No, man, I'm not going to let this beat me down. I'm going to overcome this. So I started researching, and it's easy to get information today. We're so blessed with the internet and all the information you get. Long story short, I come to find out sugar is a culprit in inflammation. And, I didn't know that before. And I actually, Marty, used to think, hey, I eat pretty clean. I never, ever eat fast food in my whole life. I like vegetables. I eat fruit. So I thought, man, Pete eats pretty good. But when I really thought about it, Marty, I did enjoy candy. I enjoyed M&Ms. And on any pasta dish, I would put ketchup. On steaks, I'd put A1 steak hot sauce. And we started looking at the ingredients of all these things. It's loaded with sugar. And so I cut that sugar out cold turkey. I was like angry with the food industry, angry with sugar, and I used that anger as a motivation. And from that day on in 2016, stopped all sugar. I also started finding out about Wim Hof and the benefits of ice baths and cold water swimming and the such. So the combination of knocking out sugar from my diet and taking ice baths, boom. Within 3 months, I'm feeling like 90% better. Also,
Wow, that's great.
I also got rid of a little layer of pudge that was around my midsection. I leaned up, got a little bit harder from just dropping all that sugar, because I think there's a lot of cascade of negative effects from the sugar on the diet. So didn't take any more medication for rheumatoid arthritis, don't have arthritis anymore.
Wow, that's amazing. It's amazing. So it's just another example of something that's seemingly a setback or a challenge, but you turned into, non-victimhood, and how can you grow and learn from this and move forward? So that's awesome. You mentioned the Wim Hof and the ice baths. I've been doing, and the breathing. So I've been, big fan of breathing, specific types of breathing for years now, and it's been life-changing. And then the ice baths. I've been trying to finish the last part of the Wim Hof instructor certification for about a year and a half. And I was supposed to go to Poland last year, and different reasons it fell through. But I'm actually going next week to Spain and going to go up in the mountains and finish that. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, congratulations. That's awesome. And I love your discipline and dedication, and commitment is the word I'm looking for. Your commitment to continue that goal. You didn't give up, which is beautiful.
Well, thank you. And I think that's when we kind of hit it off. I see a lot that I admire in you, because when you, just like with giving up the sugar, when you do make a decision, you cut off all other possibility and you commit and you get it done. So props to you as well, brother.
I appreciate that. So, hey man, the ice baths, let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah.
How did you get into it? Just through Wim Hof is what introduced you to it?
I had a friend in Florida that had started getting into it and posted some things on Facebook, and I was like, that's intriguing, good for you, but that's the last thing I want to do, because I'm from Florida and the beach, and I love the warmth. I hate the cold in general. First time I ever, like, my wife's from Buffalo, New York, and the first time I went up there, I went and saw my parents on Christmas in Florida. I was living in Georgia, and then went up to Buffalo the next day, and I was like, holy crap, how do you live in this stuff, right?
Right.
So I don't like cold in general, but slowly but surely he planted the seed, and it started kind of growing and growing. I said, all right, I'm intrigued. Let me see if I could do a little bit of this. So just started kind of playing with it, hands first, and then some cold showers, and then just got in my bathtub and put 4 or 5 bags of ice, started doing it like that. And then I went down to see him in Florida, and then we did a real one, like the whole McCoy. And I was really kind of fearful going into that one, because he said the first time he tried it, he actually had to get out. He couldn't do it. And I was like, But I really wanted to test my breathing, because I was already really into that. And I said, I wonder how I'll do.
It's a great test, right? Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. So I got in it, did my breathing, and I was like, and this is way before my Wim Hof breathing. This is more like the Dr. Polisa breathing. And I got in, did it fine, and loved it, and did like 4 or 5 rounds that day. And, I tell people, you have to overcome that primal fear right before you get in, because it's not kind of a natural thing to just throw yourself into freezing cold ice. So there is that apprehension and fear, and you overcome it. And once you get in and get through the first 15 to 20 seconds and kind of surrender to the process and focus on your breathing, it becomes amazing, very meditative. And then when you get out, it's like every cell in your body has been switched on. It's just so powerful.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, it's like, so the first thing I do every day is I do the ice bath, and it's sort of an early morning victory. You conquered something, and it sort of sets the day up to, hey, I did something hard, and any obstacle that comes my way, I can do that because I just did something hard. And what else I really like about it is this. It's a good practice at controlling your emotions. And as I said, I'm a super sensitive person, though I've gotten much better at it. It trains your mind to, not react to going into, the ice. And it's a practice, and you get better at it. And it's fun. I have friends all the time that come over and do it, and just to watch how they react to it. And I sort of coach them through it. I'm not a jerk about it. And so just to watch the process, like you said, It's a great learning experience, a great tool. And not only is it a mental process, as you know, Marty, but it also helps you out physically. It reduces the inflammation, the bangs and bruises from, our continued training.
Yes.
As I mentioned, I'm 60 years old. I'm still training hard. I box like 3 days a week, do jiu-jitsu twice a week. And so just going to the ice bath, not only is it a great mental exercise, but physically feels phenomenal.
I totally agree. You and I both, I think, want to be one of those people that, as we age, defy the odds and keep that vibrancy and that passion for life. And I see that in you, and I'm the same way. But there's also a reality that there's a lot of wear and tear over the years of your body. So anything you can do that helps you maintain that level of health and vitality and, passion. Yeah, you got to do.
Man, that is a message that I want your listeners to hear. What we were talking about right now is so important. I didn't realize for a long time, Marty, is the importance of self-care.
Yes.
Man, I would just go 110 miles an hour at everything I did. And if my body hurt, screw that. I'm just going to keep pushing, keep fighting, be mentally strong. Don't give in to the little aches and pains. So I ended up rupturing my quadricep tendon. Long story short, it pulled my the patellar bone up into my quadricep. Needed surgery to repair that. And I came to realize, Marty, man, I got to change my ways a little bit. Being the oak tree and being all rigid and hard and stiff is not the answer. I need to become the willow tree.
Yes, I love that.
And so I started implementing a whole bunch of self-care into my routine. And I think so many people in the world, not even martial artists, just everyday people that just want to live a better life. Self-care is so important. Whether just being a breathing routine, a stretching routine, swimming, the sauna ice routine, reading. You got to take care of yourself.
Totally agree. I invested in, since I was doing ice baths so frequently, and ice was getting expensive, I bought a really nice unit, that has the filter and temperature control, and so I could do it daily. And I have a big barrel sauna, so it's an investment in your health, and I'm doing that. I'm surprised at how many people just on some level know that it's good for them. Not necessarily you have to do ice or heat, but just breathing, meditation, mobility, whatever form it may take. But I used to be a stress management counselor and used to try to teach people to de-stress and take care of themselves. And I was just surprised that so many people around me that will give lip service that they know that's important, but just won't adopt a practice. And I'm not judging them. I kind of hate it for them because I know what it's done for me.
Yeah, I'm the same way. It's just like flossing. It's those little things that make a big difference in terms of a person's well-being. And I see it, as a periodontist here in Palm Desert, California. It's a retirement community. For those that don't know where Palm Desert is, it's about 2.5 hours directly east from Los Angeles. It's a retirement community. So a lot of people from the Pacific Northwest and some of the bigger cities in Los Angeles and all over the United States come to Palm Desert to retire, play golf, and play tennis after, working their tails off their whole life, but not maybe taking care of themselves their whole life. So I see a lot of patients that are in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. And there's a vast difference in the quality of living that those people have, Marty. People that take care of themselves, vibrant, happy, energetic. The other ones you sort of just feel bad for. They're just like surviving, And it's how you took care of yourself, man. Doing the little things, the flossing, the stretching, the breathing. Yes. And I learned the hard way, Marty. I just waited for stuff to break. Now, at 60 years old, I realize, and so every day, man, I'm working that stuff. Whether it be just for 5 minutes or 20 minutes, depending on how much time I have. I'm a busy guy. I have a dental practice, 20 employees, 1 or 2 other dentists working there. But, man, I made a decision, a choice for myself. And anybody can do that. I'm not special. I'm less than special. And I just forced myself to be disciplined, which I acquired from my parents, that discipline, which is everything.
Yes.
Made the choice that I am going to get better.
I love it. And you made a really good point. It doesn't have to be long. Even if you got 5 minutes to do breathing or mobility or whatever it may be, as long as you do it consistently, it's going to have a big impact. So it's a great point. A few things I wanted to just point out about your book. First of all, since we're around the same age, a lot of the references I just got and really appealed to me. It doesn't mean someone that's much younger wouldn't love it as well, but certain things, like when you talked about seeing the first Rocky movie when it came out and the effect it had on you, I was totally there, man. Same thing. I had the movie poster and everything. So funny. One of the stories you shared, there's a lot of great stories, like when you wrestled or grappled with the Russian in his home, and I won't go into details because I want people to read it, but there's just some good stuff. But one of them was the Nations of Islam story, where it was the day before Thanksgiving, and I won't go into that story either, but what I took away from that is how, because of your past or whatever, and you have certain perspectives formed, it's easy to make assumptions right away about a situation, that someone's better than you at this, or
Yeah.
And I still do today. I've come a long way, but I still have to catch myself when I go into a new situation to not kind of project something on someone, instead of just take it, how it is, and see what they're about. So that was a good lesson in that as well for you, for that story.
Yeah, everything can be a lesson. And I'm not preaching, I'm just sort of sharing. So, to be able to reflect on what's happened to you. There was somebody taught me, and I've learned so much from every human I interact with, Marty. Like, I forget who first said it to me, but like after a training session, whether it be jiu-jitsu, boxing, tennis, if you're into tennis, golfing, if you're into golf, effective action. This was at a dental seminar, now that I think about it. I learned this at a dental seminar. Effective action, whether it be you practiced an arm bar, or you practiced how to swing a tennis racket, or you were at a dental seminar. So effective action, followed by quiet reflection, thinking about what you did, visualizing what you just practiced, what you just learned, visualizing it, leads to more effective action. And so I myself would learn all these techniques. I mean, my friend Glenn Hegstead, who started Coachella Valley Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, would say, Pete, man, you know more techniques than anybody I've known in Jiu-Jitsu, but you can't implement any of them because you never really practice just one of them. It's that Bruce Lee quote about 10,000 kicks.
Right.
Point being this, you got to think about what just happened, why it happened, how it happened, and what you can do to maybe make it better.
And it's such an important lesson, because if you're not stopping, you can also go the other way. When you do something that's really great, take time to celebrate and live in that moment, and don't just rush to the next thing, right? I mean, be in that and really feel it and kind of appreciate it.
Cherish the victory.
Cherish the victory, but also whether it's a victory or not, analyze it, and not to kick yourself if it wasn't a victory, but say, learn, what did I do well? What could I have done better? And that's how you grow.
Where I do my ice baths at my house, Marty, and a big part of my life was rewiring my brain. I did that with positive affirmations that I printed out. And so in front of my ice bath, I had like 20 different positive affirmations. And one of them is the 10 Rules by Kobe Bryant, who had an incredible mindset, in my opinion. And one of them is what you just said, learn from wins and losses. That's number 4 on his list.
Love it. Love it. I'll share with you one of my favorite quotes, because I'm a big quotes guy too, but one that's always stuck with me is, you can be both, or you're allowed to be both a masterpiece and a work in progress simultaneously. And that just speaks to me, because there's parts of us that there's areas that we have mastered. So, but it's okay. You can still be the student and still grow and learn throughout your life. It's not one or the other.
Amen.
I want to share with the listeners a couple of little excerpts from your book, and then you can elaborate on them or not. It's totally up to you, but just some things that stuck out from it. One little passage says, I had grown physically and spiritually as a man, but I carried the epigenetics of the Holocaust-related trauma of my family. One way to understand the neuroscience of epigenetics is to imagine broken links in a chain inside our brains. We inherit these breaks alongside more obvious genetic material. Learning this propelled me to confront my anxiety with the goal to be rid of it once and for all, but I was not sure how I would make the switch. And then one other, the fear never leaves, but one works through it and employs it for good. The coward never leaves either, but one simply battles and overtakes it on the way to becoming a hero. This is a daily occurrence in the warrior mind. If you haven't already figured this out, this is what it means to be successful at almost anything. So I love those. Yeah,
I appreciate those kind words and your thoughts with that. Yeah, it's all about overcoming things, and we are capable of so much more than, we realize. All you gotta do is take that one step forward, in whatever it is. Yeah, that's what it's about. And I never realized that. It sort of just like fell upon me. It's taken me 60 years to sort of become better at understanding that. And it was in the writing process of the book that I learned this and understood this more. Like, man, like writing this book is like, why is Pete obsessed with fighting? Why? And yeah, it probably originated with that whole Holocaust thing and my fear and anxiety of that happening to me and my family. My maternal grandparents were Holocaust victims, survivors. And then the way they raised my mother, it was like she was in a concentration camp. And it was as a result of her upbringing is the way she raised my sister and I. And so, the epigenetics is how all those neural pathways are formed. Well, Marty, I wasn't happy with that mindset of fear, but I didn't even know how to change it or can it be changed. And so that was the journey. That's, what I learned is you can change, and how I did it took a long time. But I want younger readers to read this book and realize they can change their destiny. They can change their paths. I promise you that.
Absolutely. And even, just the name says it all, blows. Our past does not have to define us, which I love.
Thank you.
Let's switch gears just a little bit, Pete, and talk about, I know jiu-jitsu has been a huge part of your life, but also boxing. So let's talk about the role of boxing has played in your life. What attracted you to it and why?
Yeah, it's a lengthy story. I've been in and around boxing for, 20 years. I don't even know where to begin, but let's start with this. There's a different emotional impact on you when you're standing in front of someone with boxing gloves or bare fists and a strike is going to occur. With jiu-jitsu, it seems like, slower in developing. You sort of can see what's coming. They're attacking your arm. They're attacking your throat. It's more of a couple of steps to achieve that submission. You follow me? With boxing, it's much more instantaneously. It's less than a second where someone could throw a liver punch at you or throw a left hook to your jaw and knock you out, or maybe even worse. You fall back, hit your head on the concrete, and you die. I know that's happened to a few people that I know. So there's increased anxiety and fear for me when I'm standing face to face with someone. All right? And so that practice is like going to the ice bath. How do you mentally deal with that? And I both love and hate that practice because it's scary as hell. A guy's better, faster, younger than you at boxing. You better know some stuff, And so I don't even know where to begin with the story, but again, I was always searching growing up. So now I'm taking it back. I was searching for answers, and a lot of the answers or a lot of the stories in the book, but
well, a couple things before you gather your thoughts. I know James Toney was a big influence on you, and also something I didn't realize. Nelson Mandela was a boxer or learned to box, right?
Absolutely. And so, man, that's another thing, man. Reading, that's part of self-care. Reading is such a help because you see how other people have overcome crazy adversity.
Right.
I mean, Nelson Mandela's story. I read about Winston Churchill. So I thought, who were like some of the greatest leaders in the world? Like I read about Caesar, Napoleon, Winston Churchill, Nelson Mandela. I mean, what those guys have overcome is like mind-boggling, how they did it and all that. Yeah, so Nelson Mandela, one of my favorite people in history. Yeah, he enjoyed boxing and he studied it and the such. But James Toney, man, James Lights Out Toney, to the viewers, if you're not boxing fans, go to YouTube, look up James Lights Out Toney. The guy's an incredible boxer.
Yes, phenomenal.
I think one of the most underrated boxers, but yet I know he's an all-time great. And I was fortunate enough to become friends with him. I first met him when I was roughly 21 years old at this gym in a suburban area of Detroit called Livonia Boxing Club. So that's where I met him. And we sort of maintained a friendship over the years. And now I drive out to LA a couple times a month and I train with him. And man, the one thing he's taught me is nothing is more important than confidence at being successful. And so, man, Marty, I started figuring out, how do you become confident? I started studying confidence. Where does it come from? Because always in the back of my mind, there's doubt, uncertainty, failure, fear. So that's boxing and James Toney.
Wow. That's great. That's great. And you, in the book, you tell a story about being reunited at some point with him later on and how cool that was. But
it wasn't cool, Marty. It wasn't cool.
It wasn't cool.
It was another one of those Thanksgiving trips. So, boy. So, can I tell the story real quick?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, to the listeners, please do yourself a favor. Look up James Toney on YouTube. All right. So, about 5 years ago, I hadn't seen James Toney since like when I was 20, 21 years old. So I was going home for Thanksgiving from Palm Desert, going home to Ann Arbor, Michigan to visit the family and all that. And like I said, whenever I travel, like you, Marty, I find a place to train, and not too many places are open on Thanksgiving. And so I was desperate to find somewhere to train and got a hold of James' number because he was living in Ann Arbor at the time. And messaged James, hey, I was friends with you 30 years ago. I'm going to be in Ann Arbor. Can we get together and train? He goes, name the place and time. That's all he said in response. So, wow, that's pretty intense. And so, long story short, we made arrangements that on the day before Thanksgiving, we'd meet at a small little boxing gym, like the Ann Arbor Fight Club or something like that. And I'm waiting out there. It's probably like 20 degrees, windy, sort of dark, ominous sky. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, Pete, what the heck is wrong with you? I should be at home. I should be at my in-laws, chilling out, maybe having some food, enjoying myself. But here I am waiting, and who knows what's going to happen, because I've heard some crazy stories about James Toney. And so this low-riding car pulls up. 4 huge African-Americans get out in leather jackets, and they're probably like 100 yards from me from the parking lot, and I hear, pistol! Pistol! And I'm thinking, what's going on? I didn't know what to expect, to be honest with you. And when he got closer, I could hear, Pistol Pete! Pistol Pete! The guy's incredibly charismatic, loves me, gives me a huge hug and all that kind of stuff. And then we go to the gym and spar 6 rounds and, have a great workout. But that sort of is, that Ann Arbor story, James Toney, like, I didn't know what I was getting into,
That's great. Yeah, and you said that you had some nice back and forth, but nothing. He was always professional and controlled and didn't put too much on you, but did trash talk you the whole time a little bit, right?
Oh, big time trash talk me. Before the first I did some shadow boxing. He sort of watched me, said, do this, do that, do this. He said, all right, enough of that stuff. Let's go in the ring. So we go in the ring. I get my headgear on, and he's saying, Pete, we're going to bust it up. I'm going to mess you up for coming out here and all this. He's talking. And then right before the round starts, he says, hey, Pete, do you like beer or vodka? So I put my hands down, I walk up to him with my hands in front of my face to protect my face. And he goes, Pete, you like beer or vodka? And I'm like, I drop my hands. I go, what? He throws a big Lubin overhand right, bangs me in the head, and it's on. Right?
Oh, man.
So in the back of your mind, you know this guy could hurt you at any moment, big time. He had 92 professional fights, I think like 67 knockouts. He was a world champion in several weight divisions.
Wow.
He made it fun. So, yeah.
Well, how cool that you were able to have those experiences with him and, share that. That's really cool. And we won't go into it now, but for the listeners, read the book because Pete goes into, later on, in his 50s, he comes back and does some boxing matches well into his 50s. So to read that story, go ahead and do that. You'll like it. Want to ask you one more question before we get to a point where I'll open it up for you to talk about people that have really been instrumental in your life or thank anybody you would like or whatnot. But the last question is, what do you want your legacy to be, Pete?
That's easy. Always gave 100% and never quit. In anything you do, it could be like my son is obsessed with music. Yeah, he knows jiu-jitsu. He knows how to box. He's done those things. But his passion is music. And, man, I've just opened up the door for him, encouraged him, and just keep on plugging away. No matter what you do, you keep on going, not just my son, but anybody, and you can achieve so much more. So I lead by example. I never give up. I keep on going.
That's great. And it's a great thing to be remembered from. And it's very inspirational to anybody that comes into your sphere of influence. So respect, man. So when thinking about throughout your life and all you've been able to achieve and overcome, who's been the most impactful, influential, and who do you want to just shout out to, Pete?
That's a big question. I think everybody that's been a part of my life, I've been grateful for and appreciated in any way. All right. So you can learn something from anybody, in my opinion, if you're open-minded. Thousands of people have opened their arms to me and helped me in so many different ways. So I can't even begin to tell you that, but I do want to give a shout out to about 10 different people that have been impactful in my life. And first and foremost is my parents. Though growing up, I hated every moment of it, I am very grateful today because it gave me a tool that I didn't appreciate at the time, and that was discipline, all right? I want to thank Henry Akins for taking the time to show the slowest learner in the world jiu-jitsu and sharing with me his gift of jiu-jitsu. He's become a great friend and taught me about breathing and just how to have a better life. I want to also thank every guy at Coachella Valley Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu who toughened me up and beat me up over the years, starting off with none other than the king of Coachella Valley Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the striking Viking Glenn Hegstead, who continues to inspire. He's a dear friend. I've known him for 25 years. He is battling prostate cancer, metastatic prostate cancer, like a warrior. He's used all the tools that he's acquired in his years of martial arts, and he's the most positive, inspiring guy in the way he's fighting in a positive mindset this terrible illness. I also want to thank the OGs of CVBJJ, Anthony Mantanona and Dan McGowan, who continue his legacy today. I want to thank George and Juan Valdez, the Lion Killers. These guys came to my house. They drove like 45 minutes to come train me, make me harder. They drove to my house to train with me. Never paid them. They just did it to be kind and to help out Pete get better. I want to thank Randy Caballero, former world champion boxer that lives in my neighborhood. The humbleness and patience that this guy shares with me makes me and has made me much smoother and graceful than I ever thought I could be. I've mentioned James Lights Out Toney already, Marty, for sharing with me the importance of confidence and how to acquire that. I'm almost done with this list. In the dental world, I want to thank everybody that let me observe their practice when I was in grad school to learn from them. I want to thank my instructors, Richard Nagy, Jonah Tomacordial, and Thomas Sims, for pushing me and inspiring me. I want to thank the capo, the boss of my dental office, Rhiannon Smith, who makes things happen at Periodontics of the Desert. Finally, most importantly, I want to thank my son, Jalen, the most creative person I've ever met, for putting up with me. And finally, my wife of 34 years, Audrey, she showed me love and kindness do exist and has brought light to my darkness. And Marty, thank you for letting me share a little bit about me. I hope I've inspired at least one listener out there to do more than they think they can.
You certainly have. Well, first of all, from that list, you were truly a blessed man, very fortunate. So I'm glad that you're the kind of person that's full of gratitude for those people in your life. But I want to say thank you for letting us get to know more about you and your life. And you've definitely inspired a lot of people and will continue to inspire more. Your book is awesome. Everybody needs to get it. But also just when your path crosses with different people, I know you're motivating and inspiring to them. So lots of respect for you and what you've achieved and what you will achieve, my brother.
Thank you, Marty. Thank you so much.
Right on. Be well and long, healthy, happy life, buddy.
And breathe deep, slow, and full. Look into breathing, people. It is life-changing.
Breath is life.
All right. Have a beautiful day.
That's right. Okay, brother. Thank you. All right. Really enjoyed that conversation with Pete. What an interesting guy he is and an interesting life he has led. All right. Up next is the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment.
One of the most impactful things that's ever been said to me came from one of my old teammates, rowing team in college. He's graduating, sent this letter, kind of reflecting back on his collegiate experience and what he'd learned. And one of the things he said was that in life, no one will ever care about your desire to succeed. No one cares about how much time and work you put into becoming great. It's all irrelevant. At the end of the day, what people see is a winner or a loser, right? I mean, you either won or you simply did not. And everything leading up to that, the heart, the work ethic, the dedication, it all remains solely with you. It's a byproduct of the contract that you signed with yourself. To go through hell, to fight in the trenches, even when you're seeing no immediate validation. Which will happen, right? If success came at the snap of a finger, everyone would be running 4-minute miles and driving Ferraris. But that's not the way the world works. But when you make the decision to be different, to give up temporary comfort for something greater, you've committed to the ride of your life. And when the time comes, and you cross the finish line first, or you realize success in whatever capacity, you can smile at the world as they look at you like some miracle, completely oblivious to the price that you paid for this. But you know, and there's no greater gratification than that. It's been said that it takes 10,000 hours to perfect your craft. 10,000 hours of walking away from immediate satisfaction to enter this sentence of solitude and dedication. It's where you weed out mediocrity. It's where you carve out your place in history. And if you're waiting for someone to come along and just make that happen for you, it'll be a long wait, my friend. Because it's your flame, and if you don't keep it lit, it will die. And a flame can be a fragile thing. Weakness, doubt, uncertainty, failures, they all want to put it out. And if you're not bigger than your body, they will. Trust me, you'll fail. Time and time again. It may not be until your 100th attempt that you even begin to see success. But if you don't have the foresight and that persistence to see past the bumps in the road, you will never know. That relentlessness, it's how you separate yourself from the people that feel sorry for themselves and watch the world from their bedroom windows. But that's not what you signed up for. Nothing good falls into your hands. It's why every day is so important. Think of every hour as a piece of paper, right? By itself, very little weight, very little significance. But committing to the grind every day causes each piece to stack up. And before you know it, you've transformed yourself and your ability. And that's what people don't see, that stack being built piece by piece. What they see is the finish line as it's crossed one by one. They see 30 seconds. They didn't see 10,000 hours. But you did. It's why you hold your head high. It's why you can smile to yourself when people talk about you, quote unquote, being born with talent. It's why you're looking at them from the podium.
And that's going to do it for this edition of the show. As always, I thank you for listening. Hope you're enjoying the show. Please like and follow us on social media and help us spread the word by reposting our posts and telling others about the show. You can leave comments on the website at www.gracejujitsurocks.com. You can also go to iTunes and leave comments as well as rate the show, and we would appreciate a 5-star rating, which helps us with our standing in iTunes. You can also leave comments on our YouTube channel. If you have suggestions for the show, please don't hesitate to give those. We always like feedback and suggestions. Okay, that's going to do it. So until next time, this is Marty Josie, and I'll see you on the mat.